And good afternoon and welcome to Steel News. It's Thursday, March 5th at 1 o'clock, and I'm still your host, Ann Vandersteel, and we are still in the war zone. Right now, the world is watching the Middle East. I'm sure a lot of you are checking your X feed whenever you wake up in the middle of the night. And yeah, missiles are still flying. Airstrikes are expanding. We've got a regional war that's threatening pretty much to spiral into something a whole lot bigger. I'm pretty sure it's probably a lot bigger than any one of us here on this side of the Atlantic want to see. In late February, the U.S. and Israel launched a coordinated offensive against Iran, targeting military facilities, missile infrastructure, and leadership targets across the country. They wiped out their leadership. The strikes have already hit thousands of targets, killed the senior Iranian officials, and triggered retaliatory missile attacks across the region. This conflict has already widened across the Middle East, from Iran to Israel to Lebanon, with Hezbollah launching strikes and Israel now responding with expanding air campaigns. In fact, I've got a video I'm going to show you in a little bit because Lebanon, southern Lebanon, is clearly evacuating. The United States, frankly, has even sunk an Iranian warship in a very dramatic naval escalation not seen since World War II. And now the global economy is feeling the shock because of the Strait of Hormuz. One of the most important energy choke points on Earth sits right in the middle of this war zone. About 20 to 30% of the world's oil and gas passes through that very narrow waterway. It's only about 20 miles wide in some parts. And with the threat of it closing, the entire global economy is now feeling it. We're already seeing energy prices spike. We're seeing shipping routes start to collapse. Lloyd's of London, that was guaranteeing insurance for that particular market, has pulled out, and the United States has put ourselves out there, our necks out there again. We're the insurer of last resort. This, of course, causing the markets to shake. Wars in this region have always been more than about borders. They're about power, energy power, trade power, financial power. And that's going to bring us to today's topic, because behind wars, behind governments, behind political narratives, there are deeper forces, financial networks, banking systems, elite institutions that operate largely all outside the public spotlight. And some researchers even call them, and this system that they all operate behind, the hidden hand. It's a web of influence that critics say stretches through centuries of merchant banking, through the City of London, through powerful financial families, and through elite transatlantic networks like the Pilgrims Society. One journalist who attempted to expose this network was a very intrepid young lady by the name of Lillian Scott Troy, who wrote about what she believed was a long-term strategy to expand British financial influence over the United States through elite pedophile networks. Her work described what she believed was a 24-point plan developed in the early 1900s aimed at consolidating Anglo-American power structures. Now, whether every claim holds up or not, the historical connections between banking power and global politics, they're real. From the East India Company to the creation of the modern central banking to the financial institutions that shape war, trade, and energy and markets today. So today we're going to be asking questions that cut straight to the heart of geopolitics. Who really runs the global banking system, and how does that system shape the wars we're witnessing right now? Power is never where they tell you it is. Joining me today is someone who has spent years investigating these questions. My guest is Michael McKibben. Michael is a technology pioneer and entrepreneur who helped develop early social networking technologies long before Silicon Valley turned the concept into a global industry. I interviewed him about this years ago, and we'll talk about it again today because you need to know just how brilliant he is in the tech world besides the research world. And in recent years, he has focused his research on the historical roots of global financing power, examining these connections between the merchant banking networks, elite political societies, and the financial institutions that shape modern geopolitics. His work explores ideas presented in the research project known as The Hidden Hand, which I have the book sitting right here on my desk because it's a fabulous read. It's an easy and quick read, even though he's expanding it. But in this book, he argues that global banking networks evolved from ancient merchant banking systems operating across Eurasian trade routes. And some of that research suggests that early merchant bankers known as the Radhanites operated financial networks linking Europe, Asia, and the Middle East centuries ago. You all have probably heard a little bit about this over social media and different TikTok posts over the years. But I can assure you today we're going to tie it together because those networks, according to the research, helped develop the early systems of debt finance, taxation, and long-distance trade banking. Joining me today is Michael because he's going to help me discuss the evolution of those financial systems and their possible connection to modern institutions like the City of London, global intelligence alliances, you've heard of Five Eyes, Six Eyes, and others, and of course, geopolitical power. Michael, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I enjoy our conversations from time to time when I get to bend your ear or your mind. But today, I think this conversation is very poignantly timed because we are witnessing a war that didn't have to happen, but ultimately we knew was going to happen. Is that sort of a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, these people thrive on war. This is the way these banks stay in power.
That's right.
And they just create a pretext after pretext after pretext, and it goes back thousands of years. They're good at it. They know how to do it. They know how to orchestrate it. They know how to create pretexts that get the general public who's not really familiar with the issues to go along with it. And then the people behind the scenes are making money, financing both sides. And that is not a new pattern. It's old. And it was inevitable that with all the things going on in international trade and banking, and also the geopolitical alignments surrounding the Ukraine and the development of these new alliances and this sudden estrangement of America with the European Union and NATO, that something had to break. And of course, these people have a lot of money. So what do? They create a new war. That's the great distraction.
It is the great distraction. The average person believes that governments control global events. Your research actually suggests something a lot deeper. If we're going to look at power structures that exist within financial networks, transcending governments, right? Because I think at the end of the day, money talks, right?
Yes.
As they say, BS walks, money talks. And it's always about the Benjamins or whatever the denomination is. It's always about money for these people. And again, the structure has been around for years. The debt slave structure is what I call it, because that's what we live in. We live in a debt slave society. In fact, our federal government, the Treasury, just bought back, I think, $2.5 billion of its own debt, which means we just finance that again at a higher rate because rates still aren't where they should be. If they'd done this 5 years ago, it'd be a little bit better, a little less painful to the American taxpayer. But no, we're still chewing on our own fat is really discouraging. So what first led you to start looking at the origins of the global banking power?
I was drug into it. I was an entrepreneur and an engineer, and had an idea. I had rebuilt AT&T's email system in the mid-90s. And so therefore I had this bird's eye view on the entire world market related to telecommunications and regular communications and the emerging internet. And so it was during that time that I began to see an opportunity to develop a new approach to how communication was handled in the internet, and put together a crack team of people and got the funding myself. And we spent about $32 million building what is now called social networking. So the fiction that Zuckerberg did it in a week and a half while he's studying and drinking beer at Harvard was just that. It was fiction. But the powers that be knew that most people don't know how software works or how easy or hard it is to build something. So they bought the social network story, hook, line, and sinker, and still do, because they don't have anything else to show for it. And then as we sued Facebook for patent infringement in 2008 and won a verdict that they're infringing all 11 of our claims that we asserted at trial. Then we watched something very, what's the right word? Disappointing, but it was also shocking that the federal courts protected the infringer, Facebook, anyway. They protected them all the way up to the Supreme Court. Then when we started looking at the financial holdings of the judges in our case, lo and behold, we saw and found that they all had massive amounts of Facebook interests. And that the Facebook IPO was intended as an entirely, probably the biggest grifter system that's ever been orchestrated by these money people. And all the judges were in on it. So then I knew, as an engineer, I said, well, I don't know what the answer to this problem is, but I'm going to start digging. And that's how I got into this. I was dragged into it because I was wanting to protect my hundreds of shareholders who had put in $32 million in total into developing the system. And then it was stolen right under our feet. Didn't know who did it. We knew Facebook was infringing, and we could see others were too. And so that's how I started going down this rabbit hole. And it's continuing now for over a decade. And we're starting to see the edges of we can see what's going on now. And that's why I wrote the first book, Lillian Scott Troy. This book was written because as I was starting to investigate the sources of this tyranny, roads kept leading back to London and to the city of London. And to, as you said, the British East India Company. And then, so I started digging into that. And along the way, I found a pamphlet in George Mason University Library on internationalism. And in that pamphlet was a mention of this woman named Lillian Scott Troy, an American investigative journalist. And I had never heard of her, never seen her written about anywhere. And so that began the trek to figure out who she was and how she ended up having her research in 1940 entered into the congressional records. Now, isn't that amazing? Somebody that important has been memory hold for over 100 years. And we now know why. And that's what I wrote about here. She was exposing the origins of what we call now the deep state. But it was the Pilgrims Society and people associated with Cecil Rhodes and the Rhodes Scholarships and the like. And she began exposing them back in 1908, 1909. And she was invited, because she was an American journalist on the West Coast in San Francisco, she was invited to come to the first Imperial Press Conference in 1909, which was a collection of about 650 newspaper men. And she was one of the only women that was invited to this because of her press connections in the US with some of the senior Pilgrim Society organizers. And in that event, she had a bird's eye view on the entire tyranny of the British Empire. And she discovered, to her horror, that one of their main plans was to re-annex America into the British Empire in order to complete this plan.
That's right.
Because they knew that if America did not go along with their plan, they could not succeed. And so that was a plan that they hatched then, and that plan is still in process today.
So let's talk about the Pilgrim Society, because this is something that you and I have talked about, and you talk about a lot. They were founded in 1902, and it was the organization essentially that brought together these elite figures from banking, from politics, media, between the UK, and academia,
medicine, telecommunication.
The big industries that are under control today, the ones that we know are clearly under control. Heck, COVID just happened, and we completely understand what's going on with that medical industrial complex now. So what exactly is a Pilgrim Society? Because by research, when you look it up, what we've been taught in school, and I don't even know if they talk about it anymore in school, to be honest. I have no idea, but is that the Pilgrims came over and they were good people and they figured out to be friends with the Indians and they had Thanksgiving. And if it wasn't for, the Pilgrims coming over, we would not be here today.
Yes.
So we have a warm, fuzzy feeling when we think of the Pilgrims.
The British knew that. Yeah. The British knew that was the Americans' view of the word pilgrim. And they very cynically used that in their name, because they wanted to do two things. One, they wanted to recruit Americans into their plan, but they didn't want Americans to know what their plan was. And so they used this paradox to make people think, and most people do when they hear that it's about the Plymouth Pilgrims, the ones that came to America. And I won't get into some of the issues related to corporatism back in that day, but there is some connection there. But anyway, more recently, they knew that in 1909, if they picked the word pilgrim, or 1902, if they picked the word pilgrims, it would fool Americans. And that's what it has done. And what Pilgrim Society is in reality is these are not Christian pilgrims. These are not pilgrims coming to the New World. These are pilgrims making the trek from Babylon to London. So
Wow.
they know where their source is of their religion, of their money, of their practice of usury, and they know it comes from Babylon. And if we look,
can we just define that, because people think of pilgrims as white Anglo Christians, right? So you're talking about Babylon. Explain Babylon, because there's Babylon here, there's Babylon London, and there's Babylon Persia.
No, this is Babylon, where it's called Baghdad today.
Baghdad,
so
right.
This
Sorry,
is,
I said Persia, I meant Iraq, yes.
Iraq,
Yeah.
but it's also Persia. So basically, historically, if we look at the origins of usury itself, it came out of Babylon, and it was King Nebuchadnezzar first legalized usury. In other words, it's legal to charge interest on money or loans, and to charge compound interest, and therefore make people debt slaves. And that was a law of the land in Babylonian times, 1755 BC. And we have a huge obelisk stela structure that actually has those laws codified, so we know exactly when it happened. And from that point forward, two classes of people developed. One were bankers, and two were lawyers to protect the bankers. And that began the system of debt slavery that was created in Babylon, was never relinquished, and has been passed down through the ages to our present time. And there's a lot of mechanism for how that happened. But initially in the ancient times, they were managing the business of the Silk Road. And the Silk Road went from China all the way to Ireland and all throughout Europe. And so that makes sense. People can understand that. That's how trade happened. And this was really before modern shipping. And then as shipping came along, more of those routes were sea routes, and after thousands of years. But at the time of Solomon, for example, they had plenty of ships, Phoenician ships, that were headed down to Africa to pull out gold from the mines of Ophir, which is talked about in the Old Testament. And they brought that gold back to Solomon, and then Solomon did trade deals with the Babylonians, which are not that far from each other. You got the map there. But that's the ancient Silk Road. And the issue there, when you see that long trek of countries involved. So the question was, where did they settle up their trades? And they settled their trades in Babylon. So Babylon is right there, where you see the point Iraq, just to the right there.
Yeah, right here.
Right. And that was where they settled the trade. So that was the Federal Reserve of the ancient world.
Interesting.
So they learned how to do debt-based financing a long time ago, 4,000 years ago. And the fact is, once they got that power, once those two classes of people got that power, what we have discovered in our research is they never gave it up. They've only ever solidified it.
Yeah.
And there's artifacts, there's archaeology that proves exactly what I'm saying. The receipts are there, that this is exactly what happened. So we have that issue. That map stretches a lot of parts of the world, and genetically a lot of parts of the world, right? And
Correct.
So as these young men are along that road, meeting pretty girls across the nations, basically the bloodline of the Silk Road is quite mixed. And these are the people that we're talking about who came west. And they eventually set up a new banking center in the city of London in about 1066 AD.
Okay.
And I believe that's when they brought the Solomon's gold to the gold bullion vaults in London, and that eventually has become called the Rothschild gold bullion vaults. But that control of gold was a key element of the Solomon's gold, was a key element in them maintaining their hold over the banking of the ancient world.
Really fascinating, because you know, the city of London today, and I was having this discussion, in fact, yesterday on a space, and then I think it was Tuesday, I was on InfoWars for a weekly hit, and I was trying to gently educate the audience that, banking has always been what drives the wars. We know they fund both sides.
Right.
And people were, I was trying to explain on InfoWars the reason behind this war from my perspective. And,
Yes.
I'm just one person here, not, nothing special. Just this is how I see it. I look at the money. I follow the money on these things. In fact, I think that's what a lot of people have learned in the last 10 years is learn to follow the money. We're seeing
Yes.
it in Congress right now. So that being said, I was looking and trying to explain, actually using just what I recently read in this book, some of the terminology and descriptions of who we are and who we are financially and who's really running the world. But I got so much pushback, not because they were trying to be rude, but I think mostly because in some aspects it didn't comport with maybe the platform that they're on, because perhaps the platform is being run by the very same people that are controlling the finances today.
That's a
right?
problem.
It's a problem. So when you're trying to use free speech on a platform that's controlled by the people who control the money, the hidden hand in all of this, it becomes a
Right.
problem. And out of deference to the people that are hosting me, I don't want to put them in a bad position either. But at some point, which is why I decided to have you on, we have to have a really we have to have a frank conversation about what's really happening, because we are in a war right now. Not only just an information war and a war on our borders and just our war for our sovereignty, but we're in a world war that's including 3 countries that is actually expanding into other countries because they're being brought in. And
Well, the
Russia is now,
fascinating thing is you've got on your map Persia there. That's
yeah,
the subject of the current war. And
right.
that is the subject of the ancient history of merchant banking.
That's right.
If you look, there's a Strait of Hormuz, and if you go all the way up to the top of that Gulf and
Yep.
go up the Tigris and the Euphrates,
Yep.
you will find Babylon. And
Yeah.
since ancient times, Babylon has been the center of banking for the whole world. And they
So
learned how to do it.
So let's talk about the merchants then, and who these mercantile and merchants are and bankers are, because they did set up shop in 1066, 1067 in the city and created the city of London. It's a sovereign city, kind
Right.
of like the Vatican is, and the
Isn't that
UN,
interesting concept? 1
isn't
square
it?
mile.
Yeah.
Where'd they get that? They got that from Babylon.
There you go. They got it from Babylon. So
Right.
I think it's very interesting. I'm going to just pull this up here so that people have a concept of what we're talking about here. But so we have the same people that have come across the continent of Asia and into, in Middle East and into Europe. And it's been a mixed blood of, people interracially, different cultures marrying and so forth. But
Correct.
we have a culture of people right now, the Radhanites, that are really the genesis of setting up the city of London.
Correct.
Those people are also involved in the governments in certain countries.
Mhm.
You want to expand on that, because I think people
Yeah, I
need to
do.
understand.
It's
Yeah,
really
please.
important to understand
Yeah.
this because the British came from somewhere, and the British culture that we know came was really organized after the 1066. That was when William the Conqueror, a Norman, a Frenchman, came and
Hmm.
conquered the duchies of England and created one country out of that. So the French were using bankers from Babylon to finance their war into London. Now they already had bankers. They already had bankers that were there, have been there anciently. So they handled the trade going both ways. And so the English already had those bankers in London or in Britain at the time. But the interesting thing about the financial system in England historically is that they refused to charge usury in their economy prior to
Interesting.
William the Conqueror.
That's
Most
interesting.
people
So
don't
they
know
they
that.
didn't. I actually did not know that. So the British did not believe in charging interest
The
on
Dutch or the duchies that were the various centers of
Dutch.
power
Yeah.
in England did not charge usury. No, it was against the law to charge usury.
Isn't that interesting?
It's kind of interesting how in one story they accuse this guy usury because the person he was selling something to wanted a little bit more, so he gave him his hat. And he was actually charged with charging usury by giving him his hat. So that's how
funny?
Detailed they were. So anyway, in 1066, William the Conqueror took England at the Battle of Hastings, and then within a year, he issued a charter for the City of London, which was the square mile right along the Thames, which was already a shipping center historically anyway. So he formed this, and he also then formed what now became knighthoods. He agreed to let people become members of the City of London, and they could pass their membership from father to son. And so that became the chivalry system that we have today of knights and sirs and earls and things like this. And so one of the key proponents of how they were going to handle their tax was to be developed after they did an inventory of the entire country. And they did that and published that in something called the Book of Domes.
Book of Domes?
Well, some people call it the Doomsday Book, but that's a mistranslation. It's the Domesday Book, the Book of Domes.
Okay.
You can go read it now. You can pull it up on the internet and read it.
Yeah, got it.
And it was a survey of all of the lands and values in England so that the King, William the Conqueror, could tax the country. And in that Book of Domes, it actually documents the Radhanites in the book. And they were the riding knights. They were the people that went with the various landowners and collected taxes. They handled the business of each of the duchies as they were reorganizing for the king, and they handled the money in the financial exchange. Now, who were these Radhanites? Well, as we have now seen historically, they were the people that plied the trade of the Silk Road going back to the ancient of days. And why were they called Radhanites? That was because an Arab historian in about 850, I'm rough, it's within 10 or 20 years, 850 AD, this is before the Crusades, right. An Arab historian who was also the chief spy of Babylon, or by then it was called Baghdad, by the name of Ibn Cordoba, wrote a book called the Book of Kingdoms and the Book of Roads and Kingdoms. And in that, he documents this group of people that claim to be Jews in Babylon or Baghdad that handled the banking of the country. And now this guy was a Muslim. He was not a Christian. He was not a Jew. And he described this group as Jews. By then, they had the Babylonian Talmud well developed. And they also later developed Yiddish. And so he describes this group of people as the merchant bankers of the Silk Road. And he actually has a map that shows where their settlement office is. And it was a place called Radhan in the area of Babylon.
Radhan as in R-A-D-A-N in Babylon?
R-A-D-H-A-N.
H-A-N, sorry.
H-A-N, and he called them Radhanites.
Interesting.
And this was basically the Talmudic center for education in the Talmud after it was developed in Babylon, not in Jerusalem. And that's where this issue started to have clarity for me. They were claiming to be Jews. Now, why would they claim to be Jews? Well, as it's turning out, I'm summarizing. Among the 40 or 50 nations of the Silk Road, these people basically didn't trust each other when they were doing exchanges of money and goods and letters of credit. And so they had decided they were going to trust the Hebrew people. And so they wanted, and that's the map that shows the ancient Radhanite trading centers throughout the world. And so they wanted people of the book to handle their transactions because they believed they would be more honest. And so what happened is, of course, any good pragmatic businessman who's trying to cut deals, okay, I'm Jewish. That's what happened.
So people
And
just took and appropriated Judaism because they wanted to be able to handle money and be
yep,
trusted with the money.
bank, and if I could say Jewish and somebody in Sogdia or along the Silk Road in what is now Iran or over in Turkey or even up into Northern Europe when they started a northern route, if that made the deal happen, then that's what they became. It was a very pragmatic. So all this stuff we've all heard about the Khazarians cut a deal, the same kind of deal. They said, okay, fine, we're Jewish. And if that's going to make business happen, why not? I mean, think
Right.
about it. You know, pragmatic business guys, and
Sure.
they're going to say, if that's what you want, that's what I am.
That's right.
And so that's when the Talmud really got started, because they had to start adjusting certain teachings of the Torah. And one of the biggest one was the prohibition against the charging of usury.
And the Talmud would allow you to do that
And the
versus the
Talmud
Torah.
Opened up the door. Totally
Wow.
opened up the door.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting? They basically appropriated a religion or
Yeah.
a religion and then rewrote their own religious book so that they could actually charge usury, which was really against the law at the time. And that people
back in the time of the prophets in 600 BC, we see prophets like Ezekiel calling a usury an abomination.
Yeah.
And railing against the charging of usury, which enslaved people, and it made money from money. And so therefore it became a demonic entity. It wasn't based on humanity.
Well, right here, usury was banned in the Book of Moses, but defined in the Babylonian Talmud as reward for waiting.
Well, there you go. Where'd you find that?
That's I'm doing searches as you're talking. I'm pulling
okay, that's exactly what we discovered. So the Talmud was in fact a way, the whole reorganization of what became called Judaism had nothing to do with the Torah. And in fact, it contradicted the Torah. And so in order to do that, they had to create a new religion. And so it's still called Jewish, but the fact is it has little relationship to Jerusalem or Judah, the land of Judah.
So the Radhanites are people, it's a group of people that have multi-ethnic origins coming across the Silk Road and ultimately started relating themselves as Jewish and rewriting their own religious books into the Talmud so they could charge usury, which was against the Torah. Interesting. Okay. All right. So now
that's a real fast summary.
It's a fast summary, but I want people to get I want people to get general concepts because, when you try to have conversations, a friend of mine, who is not anti-Semitic at all, was sued by the ADL because he was calling out, certain people that were Jewish that were censoring him and a bunch of other stuff, but he wasn't calling Jews bad. He wasn't, defaming Jewish people. I have lots of Jewish friends. And I have lots of Jewish friends that aren't down with the government of Israel any more than I'm down with the government of the United States right now on a lot of things. And I don't think anybody should ever trust their government. You have a public servant, you should be making sure they're doing what you're asking them to do. They're supposed to serve you. Right. So, I find it, it's been very difficult to navigate this. And now you throw this Israel-US war with Iran, and Israel is, at this point now going and telling people in Lebanon, hey, you live in southern Lebanon, you got to get out because we're going to come and bomb the crap out of you for the next 2 weeks. They want to take over southern Lebanon. I put an article out about it this morning, and I gave it a little bit of a different spin through some friends I have that are Lebanese, that high-ranking Lebanese, that said, we have a lot of water here and they don't. And if Israel and the Greater Israel Project are to survive, they need the water. And so they're looking at, accumulating real estate all around them. And is it really the Hebrews that are doing this, or is that the Radhanites? No. Okay, explain a little more.
From all of the genetic studies that are coming down now, for the longest time, this issue was hard to sort out because it was pre-DNA. And so you had a lot of anecdotal evidence and archaeological evidence for what I'm saying, but now the DNA just reinforces it. And what is coming out of the DNA studies is that the term Ashkenazi was not developed until the 11th century. There was no tribe of Ashkenaz in Israel.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one clue. There's something weird about this. Why did that term get created? Because if you go back and look at the Book of Domes and the development of the City of London and England, you see that they referred to Radnites. And that was the ancient word, Rodnites. Those are the people of the Silk Road trades. Everybody knew that. And so that's part of the issue. Our ignorance of history is a part of our problem.
It's
because
so true.
Anciently, in context, everybody knew who the Radnites were. And they knew they were coming from the Middle East, and they knew they were claiming to be Jews.
Mm-hmm.
So when the term Radnite disappeared, it disappeared at about the same time as Ashkenazi, Ashkenaz as a people group of Jews came into being. Now, if they came into being in the 11th century, where were they back in biblical times? They weren't.
They weren't.
No. And then if you look at the DNA studies, there's a lot of a whole theory was floated called the Rhineland theory for how come so many Jews ended up in central Germany around Frankfurt. And
Jews as in Ashkenazi, Jews as in Hebrew. I mean, what kind of Jews? Because Jews is like a catch-all word now these days.
It's yeah, it means anything. And then I like Sephardic. The idea of so there's also Sephardic from Spain, but the Sephardic and the Sephardic came later. Ashkenazi was the main term earlier in the 11th century. So when you see history being manipulated like that, that's a clue to our researchers. That's red meat to a dog, that we're going to figure out what's going on here. And what we discovered from the DNA is that the Ashkenazi blood is very mixed, and it's got Turkic, Persian, Khazarian, what's called Sogdian, which anciently was the area of all the parts of the world now that were called they're called stands today, Kazakhstan, Turkestan, Uzbekistan. Pakistan. Those were all a big nation of the nations of the Silk Road back in the day. And then there's even Chinese blood. So it's a mirror of the Silk Road. Now, the interesting thing is, just anecdotally, yesterday, we had a church service, and a man from Kazakhstan was there, and he's a student at Ohio State. And so we started talking about, he had said, I'd done my DNA study. And I said, oh, this is interesting. And what did you discover? And he described the percentages, and it stretched all the way to Turkey in his bloodline.
Interesting.
And even China on the other side.
Wow. And so he's a product of the Silk Road.
Absolutely. And it was predominantly Kazakh, but it wasn't totally Kazakh.
Very interesting.
There you go. And that's what we're seeing. Now, there's been a lot of playing with words among the geneticists, and some are trying to expand the definition of what it means to be Judean. They're actually using the word Levantian. So Levant is that whole area. And so all of a sudden you mix the story up, and then people are confused because they don't want to spend the time studying DNA. So what does that mean? Well, it's turning out that when you start looking at the biblical stories, King Herod, for example. Now, most people, I never thought about, was he Jewish or not? Well, I found out he was Edomite, and he claimed to be Jewish. Edomite / Canaanite. He was not Jewish, and yet his ancestors and his progeny continued to claim to be Jewish well into the 4th century. And so there we go. There's a big confusion as to what that means to be Jewish.
All right. So then let's bring this into modern day right now. Israel has gone to war with Iran, and the United States is right alongside. And AIPAC has been a massive funder for Congress. Most of Congress takes some kind of AIPAC money, including the president. Miriam Adelson has donated millions of dollars to President Trump's campaign. She said she would do another $250 million if he ran a third term, and she says she has attorneys working on how he can actually do that. So Israel has been a massive financial supporter, but it's not without a price. They expect us to come and go to war with them when they want, and this is a war that is being positioned, and we're being told it is a regime change. It isn't a regime change. Well, it's a regime change. President Trump is now taking applications, as he said on True Social, for people to fill the regime. He's not interested in the Ayatollah's son.
What does that mean? Fill the regime?
Well, he wants to replace the leader. I said fill the regime. Replace the leader. He's looking to replace. He said on True Social, I'm looking to replace. I'm taking applications and getting flooded with applications. Okay, that's awesome. Great. But I guess there's so many questions around that. Do we even have, should we be doing that? If we're interfering in a sovereign nation of Iranians that, are not a radical Islamic, they're more Sunni than they are Shia. And the Sunni are, not this dogmatic radical Islamic sect of Muslims, right? They are more like Americans. Iran was very much like America until the radical.
Well, the interesting thing about Sunnis is that Ibn Cordoba was a Sunni when he wrote about the Radhanites. And then within 100 years, a sect of Sunnis by the name of the Seljuk Turks started taking over parts of the Middle East, including they took Babylon, Baghdad, and they were knocking on the door of Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the Christians in Europe said, "Nah, we're not going to let this happen." And that's when the Crusades began. And that's also when the Radhanites were pushed out of Babylon and started moving west.
Right.
And so it's a short haul from Babylon to Smyrna in Turkey, where they could load gold onto ships and send it off to the city of London.
To the city of London.
I think that's when Solomon's gold got moved. You try to look for an artifact of Solomon's gold today, you can't find it. So the question is, what happened to it? Well, it was a part of their ancient trade system, and that was collateral for their fiat currencies.
So now let's tie this, as somebody just said. I think it was Mr. Wonderful the Cat. Kevin Stevens. I'm sorry. He said, time to get down to the heart of the matter. So let's bring it home. Let's tie the Radhanites that set up the city of London. You believe King Solomon's gold was the backing for the fiat. They obviously created usury, created interest, charging interest people, to people for borrowing money. Now let's compare the people that are in the city of London to the people that are running the Israeli government, because Israel is a nation state formed in 1948 from the Balfour Declaration with Lord Rothschild. Let's talk about the DNA and the roots of Balfour, Rothschild, and of course the merchant banks that are sitting in the city of London. Are they similar?
Oh yeah, this is all connected.
Okay.
But we have to get back. That's why we've been identifying these different threads on this. But in terms of the modern banking in England, we see, going back to the formation of the American Revolution and formation of America, that the City of London has always had an iron grip on the finance in America.
Yes.
Going back to the original Rothschild family that was loaning money during the Revolution. They were loaning money to the British to hire Hessians to come over and fight on the British side. So this history of the Rothschilds goes back to that.
Sure.
And then we see the various attempts by the City of London to control American financial and finance and trade. And that went hundreds of years. And even during the Civil War, they were trying to finance the Civil War. They financed the War of 1812, where the White House was burned, and we almost lost our country then. So there's a lot of history related to the Rothschilds. I don't want to overly focus on the Rothschilds because their current history in terms of the 4,000 years of Babylonian Radhanites. But I think they were invested with a lot of that power on how to do banking. Mm-hmm. And I think that as they began to ensconce themselves in the British empire from the formation of the Bank of England, their predecessors, I should say, that by the time they came along, the system was well developed. And although it started in Germany, they also had a strong presence in London. And so they then saw that they could cut deals with the British monarchs, and the monarchs would protect them in this devil's deal. And that has been a fairly good formula. If you hide all of your illegal and immoral activity behind a monarch who cannot be sued and will basically absolve you of any kind of criminality, then you have a pretty good deal going. And I think that's, in summary, that's why the British banking system has been so successful, is the empire was protecting the bankers. And so that we have today the Rothschilds continuing on. Right. And let's talk specifically about Israel, because one of the things that we always have to remember, the motive of the British Empire is to control resources, because they're a little island. And so they're looking for resources in Africa and Asia and Australia and the Middle East. And so in the early 1830s, about the time that they abolished the black slavery, 1833, they were looking for how to control the Middle East. And so several Rothschilds started funding settlements in what is now Israel. Back then it was Palestine. Settlements from about 1860. In fact, the same banker, Edmund de Rothschild, is one of the key funders of Jeffrey Epstein today. The same family.
Right.
But back then they wanted to control the resources of the Middle East, and they cut a deal basically with the leading rabbis. And they said, look, we'll give you money if you let us control the resources in the economy of the emerging Palestine. And that was the deal they cut. They gave the Rothschilds the receipts and the authority to control their economy and their politics in exchange for creating this Zionist Israeli state. And that's what's happened. So when we have a pretext, that the Balfour Declaration was nothing but a pretext, because it was signed by the British Prime Minister Balfour, who was a Pilgrim, and it was signed by Lord Walter Rothschild, who was also a Pilgrim. And they basically, these two secret society members agreed together in the background to create a pretext so that they could send the British troops in. And that was the reason for the Balfour Declaration. It wasn't a righteous act.
Well, can I pause you right there and just bring you to current events? Why is it that the British seem hesitant to go on offense then on behalf of Israel and the U.S. when it comes to this Iran war? They've sent, I think, 12 F-22s.
Okay.
Yeah. What are they pulling back? Are they checkmated?
They're masters at organizing behind the curtains.
Got it.
And secondly, one of the reasons they have worked to annex America for 100 years is because they see us Americans and our soldiers as the knuckle draggers that they bring along behind them to do their hard work, because they can use their money to do that.
Right.
And that's why they do that, because they don't have the resources to do that. But they're very involved in our military industrial complex. So they know that we will supply them whatever resources they need.
Okay, I'm
so
sorry.
We're their policemen for their one world order.
Right.
That is their mentality.
Right. So going back to the Balfour Declaration. How did this imperial strategy reshape the Middle East? Because we've got Israel now sort of at the center of everything going on and sort of the ringleader. Was it designed to do exactly what it's doing? Was the 1948 State of Israel creation the first step into the Greater Israel Project? And is this again part of the colonial empire of driven from the City of London bankers, which we now know are all part of this Silk Road merging of
Right.
people over thousands of years. Is this really what it is? They're just the merchant bankers that have been from one end of the world to the other are trying to now subdue it all, own it all, and profit off it all?
Well, first of all, I don't think this is the thinking of any particular human being. I think this is demonic. And so
Okay.
we've got a demonic entity that has spent 4,000 years to get where he is today.
Mm-hmm.
And so consequently, there have been a lot of dutiful minions along the way. And you ask about 1948. Well, that was the culmination. But the real belief was that around the First World War, that was one of the pretexts for moving into Palestine, was to create this homeland for the Jews.
Right.
And so that was the political front story that they found got a lot of traction in developing how they were going to increase their power. The Rothschilds already had power there. They already had control of their banking and their influence. And because they had enough money to do whatever they wanted, they were the ones that everybody listened to. And so consequently, when the Prime Minister of England says we got to figure out a pretext to get our troops in there, it was during World War I. So there was a lot of tension in the world. And so they created this pretext of the Balfour Declaration. Well, they want us to come in. The Rothschilds want us to come in. And they knew that it was the Rothschilds that they had to get permission from, because they knew that the Rothschilds were the ones that were controlling Palestine at that time. And so it was a pretext. It was a fiddle. It'd be like you, hey, Ann, tell me you really like my piece of technology, and write it down on a piece of paper. Then I'll use it as a testimonial over here. I'm the one who initiated that. You went along with it, and then we got done what we want. So that's how it works.
Got it.
And so they did that, and the British troops moved in immediately, right after the Balfour Declaration. They were just ready to go. And so then it was the British Palestine, I forget the name of the protectorate, that ended up being reorganized in the 1948 war.
Okay.
So the other thing they did, and this is not something we probably want to get into, but they also knew they needed the support of people who paid attention to the Middle East and to Palestine. And one of those was evangelical Christians. And so that's the other thing that we have discovered is that the Rothschilds were actually the funders of a guy by the name of Cyrus Schofield. And what they did is they reinterpreted a number of biblical passages related to ancient Israel, and applied them to a modern future state of Israel, and got evangelicals to go along with that idea. And so with that, they then financed certain preachers in the U.S. to really reinforce that, to get Americans to go along with the idea that the British should take over in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Schofield Bible is a very significant piece in this puzzle. As we know, our history books are rewritten. I mean, you can't find civics, and they don't even teach constitutional law. I think it's an elective in law school. It's not even a real class. You can elect to take it. Wow. So they're really rewriting history. And the Schofield Bible is a very clear-cut example of that. Could you spend a little bit of time and just sort of translate that into what that means for the
yes,
the evangelicals, because they really are the first people to rush to the support of Israel. And I don't know if they're fully informed.
Well, I know they're not fully informed. This is the era I grew up in when I was involved with Christian ministry. So I know a lot of the proponents of a lot of proponents of this Schofield idea of dispensationalism, of the rapture, of premillennial, post-tribulation, pre-tribulation. I mean, there's a whole bunch of terms, but basically, we've now traced it down, and I'm adding to the hidden hand because we've now proved this, that Schofield was parachuted into Oxford University Press in about 1903 to write write a note Bible, a reference Bible, where in the notes they would particularly take the teachings of an earlier preacher from England by the name of John Nelson Darby, and they would basically lift his idea of dispensationalism. And that idea, I don't want to over summarize it or oversimplify it, but basically the idea is that the modern state of Israel was called out in the Old Testament, and that those references in the Old Testament were not referring to the church, but were referring to a new reconstituted state of Israel in future times, for 3,000 years hence. Mm-hmm. And so Scofield used Darby, didn't credit him, by the way. In the Scofield Bible, there's no credit for Darby.
Interesting.
And the other key piece of this, if you look at the front of a Scofield Bible, you'll see that it says Reverend C.I. Scofield, D.D. He was never a doctor of divinity. So here we can see the formations of this pretext, in that they're misusing credentials, they're not crediting their sources, and this is Oxford University Press, supposedly the preeminent scholarly publication. And so we see a lot of signs that there's something wrong with Scofield's story. And then we read the actual text and we see how he is co-opting theology. He's really creating his own theology here that will give a justification to Christians, evangelical Christians who were most interested in that, for believing that 1948 was a God-given event that satisfies Old Testament prophecy, which the church had historically always taught is the church, the fullness of Christ. And so it really confused evangelicals. It really has confused.
This morning, I was telling you, I had a conversation with somebody. I'll leave their name out of it because I don't necessarily have permission to repeat what we were talking about, but I'll tell you this much. I was being educated that the red heifers in Texas are being bioengineered, genetically engineered to create these red heifer cows to send to Israel to fulfill Bible prophecy.
Hey, well, that's good. When a prophecy is not going to happen and you can make it happen, what's the difference?
What's the difference? It's not biblical then.
Well, I grew up in this evangelical.
We're forcing God's time, I guess, right?
Mix.
We're making God speed up the clock. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I grew up in this. I traveled in a music group, and we turned over every stone in Christendom. I heard so many variants of this Scofield story as I was growing up as a young Christian, and then as a Christian leader. And so I'm very familiar with every aspect of this issue. But I never paid any attention to it because I never really bought the Scofield story. And there's a lot of evangelicals that don't buy it. But it has some interesting effects. One of the things it does, which isn't all bad, is it really gets Christians to be more present in the way they talk about their faith. And that wasn't bad. But the idea, I met some people who believed in Scofield Bible so well that, in fact, that you couldn't use any other Bible in their churches besides the Scofield Bible. So it's like a drug. And then once you start down that path, you got to start making up stories because it doesn't hold water theologically. And so you have movies, you do stay behind movies and books, and Jesus is coming back, and it's its own profit center in evangelicalism.
Yeah, it is. And we've seen all kinds. I mean, look, we've seen them come and go. We've seen them go to jail. Jim and Tammy Faye Baker come to mind. There's been others.
They were dispensationalists, yes.
Yeah, they've fallen from grace.
I sang on their TV show in my group.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Did you believe them when they were doing their TV show? Okay.
Well, I mean, we were guests. We were doing music. I mean, we didn't have to sign a doctrinal statement that we believed everything they were teaching.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So this is very interesting. So bringing it forward to today, we have a group of Christians, whether they're evangelical or not, that really believe perhaps the Scofield Bible version. We have people today that are, literally bioengineering red heifer cows to send to Israel because, we're talking about this as Revelation, it's end times. You've got multiple countries now engaged because multiple countries have been bombed or had their energy trade business taken offline, which is infecting the whole world. And Israel is a nuclear country. And I said on a space that, got a lot of people upset when they said, what's the worst possible outcome? I said, well, Israel could launch tactical nukes, I guess, not because I think the people want that. I don't think anybody wants that. But when you're talking about a group of people that have, over time gone and created something that's totally illegal, even biblically illegal. Remember Jesus flipping tables and all that, Moses banning usury.
Right.
These are the same people that were established.
Jesus said you can't serve mammon and God.
That's right. You can't serve mammon and God. Correct. So you've got people now that are established as the bankers that are funding both sides of wars. They're making billions right now on all of this.
Oh, yeah.
And the military industrial complex loves the bankers, right? Because they're funding all this. Trump's meeting with them tomorrow, as a matter of fact. We've got according to Colonel Doug McGregor, we have a very lopsided inventory when it comes to missiles in this war. We've got about 4,000 and Iran has 450,000 thanks to China. So if that's a fact, the war of attrition is not on our side at this time. They can continue to.
Well, that's the beauty of a pretext. Right. You can make up whatever story you want, and especially if you can throw fear into a public. Let me give you an example from World War I.
Okay.
The British wanted to fight the Germans. They were trying to figure out a way to get the British public to fight the Germans. And the Germans were their relations. I mean, the royal family, the Windsors, were German.
That's right.
So what these bankers had to do, the Pilgrims Society people, is they formed something called the British War Propaganda Bureau, and they started floating this illustration. It was nothing more than an illustration of a jackbooted German soldier with a really long rifle and a bayonet, with about 5 or 6 young children and babies jabbed and bleeding as he's marching down the street. And they wrote a press release with it that said they caught the Germans bayoneting young children and babies and rendering their little bodies to make explosives and was one other thing they wanted to do with those bodies. Oh, make soap. Ugh. And they actually floated this story all over England, and it turned the English people and the Americans. This was carried in Life magazine at the time, another Pilgrim, by the way, and it turned the whole American British public against the Germans. That one illustration.
Sure.
That's how easy it is. They know that.
Yeah, they proved it to us with 9/11. They proved it to us with COVID. I mean, you go back in time and you can find entire societies just immediately flip on a dime and start to really either love or hate something else because
exactly. And so you asked me why I got involved in this. Well, yeah. I built a communication system called what's now called social networking. And it was one in a long line of communications mechanisms. And what we look back, if we go back into the early 1800s, the Rothschilds learned when telegraph was first used that if they could get market information ahead of their competitors, they could make money. And so from the very first days of banking, investing in technology, specifically the Rothschild family realized if they could control the mechanism, they could control their future profits.
Right.
And they could get the public. And they actually used a term, this goes way back, but by the Imperial Press Conference in 1909, it was a refined science. And they called it creating public opinion. Creating right. public opinion. And they didn't
using media and intelligence agencies to do it.
Using communications and media to get the people to believe whatever you want in order to control them. And they definitely had a two-tiered view of humanity. It was them, the haves, and then everybody else, the have-nots, which they needed to control.
That's right. Mr. Cat knows this. Mr. Wonderful the Cat, he says the use of fear to gain obedience is the oldest form of mind control in use since the beginning of man's recorded history. What authority does not use it today? The answer is none. Everybody uses it. I
Yep.
mean, you could say we're using it, and everything that you talk about here is always bringing. You always have receipts. I'm holding some of them right now, including your patent, by the way, for the social media networking that
Right.
you were, that you invented that was stolen. I want to talk to something that piqued my interest, and I was doing a little more digging. The YMCA and the Salvation Army, Rothschild tools for urban slavery.
Yep.
You've said Trump is a pilgrim. And when I saw this, I immediately went to, what does Trump play at rallies all the time? YMCA.
I know. It drives me nuts when I hear that.
Is he gaslighting us? Is it just a
Well,
weird
I
coinky-dink?
I
What
don't
is
know
it?
if I'm not sure I said he's a pilgrim. I'm not sure I know. And that's the
Okay.
problem with the secret society. You don't know all their members, especially current members. The
Okay.
pilgrims, we've started releasing,
So I
started
recant.
releasing rosters.
I recant. I thought you did say he was a pilgrim. I must have misheard you or
No, I'm
conflated it with
always
something
thinking,
else.
is he or isn't he? But in terms of, do I know that? No, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But he's definitely got pilgrims surrounding him.
Yes.
And so that's a part of the issue with, I think, a lot of the advising he's getting. But you went back to, I lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay, because this is I think that in this book, this is one of my favorite chapters because it's so important that you write in here in big, bold font, the Pilgrim Society's control of MI6, MI5, GCHQ, and media outlets ensures Rothschild narratives, aka the Radnites, aka today's Jews,
Yep.
align Israel with British American interests, advancing the corporatist imperial state. And
Yes.
if you break all that down, agency government, they're all for-profit entities. Every single agency of the United States government is a for-profit. It all has Dun and Bradstreet numbers. They have new federal identification numbers now, but they all use public-private partnerships. We are run by a corporation, by a number of corporations.
It drives me nuts when I hear public-private corporation.
I know.
Because if you think about it, what is that saying? That's saying the public and the private, so that whatever happened to competitive bidding. So
Correct.
the idea that you have a government that's using resources from private organizations, isn't that the definition of fascism?
It is.
Absolutely is.
Especially these sole source contracts. That's just complete and utter. It's boom. It's fascism.
Right.
With a bow on it.
Totally.
And a lot of billions.
If you look at when I was investigating who stole my technology, discovered a group called the Highlands Group. And that's probably something nobody's ever heard of. Well, it started in 1995 in the Clinton administration, and it was a collection of selected defense contractors with selected military leaders from DARPA and selected bankers and media that got together on a quarterly basis, and they decided which technologies they wanted to bring forward and weaponize. That was their job.
Interesting.
And weaponize. And so my whole adult life has been suffering from the fact that our military industrial complex, our technology world, has been driven by these secret hands. And then behind that, winding that forward a little bit, I actually was able to interview someone who attended one of those meetings because they were an expert in an internet technology. And guess who showed up besides my patent attorney who was running that meeting? Guess who showed up at the meeting? Anthony Fauci.
No way.
I'm not kidding.
You've got to be kidding me. And this was what year again?
I'm going to say that meeting was in 2015, 16.
Oh my God.
I have the affidavit. She wrote an affidavit.
Did the temperature of the room get real icy cold when he walked in? I mean, did you have a vibe?
No. He was engaging with all the leaders of DARPA and my patent attorney, and in fact, actually offered to give participants vaccines during the meeting.
No way.
And I said, did anybody do it? She said, not a one.
Oh my God, he's such a demon. And I know you wrote an article on him, and you showed the family crest.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I can still remember the family crest of Anthony Fauci. It looked like the medical spire with the snake going up around a staff, but it had a snake coming off the top of the staff eating a baby.
Correct.
Oh my God. And that's the Fauci family crest.
That's the Abyss family crest, which is his mother's side, Abyss, Abyss, and it means the same thing back in Switzerland.
Isn't it incredible?
Switzerland, Italy. In fact, the city of Milan uses that same crest in their crest. I mean,
with the baby's head being eaten by a snake?
With the baby. Yeah.
Oh my God. The things you know, and the things you share, and the things I learn when I talk to you. It's just, some of it's horrifying, some of it's just fascinating, but it's, oh God.
Well, we can't figure out the problem until we know what it is.
So I'm going to ask you to sort of, nobody's going to hold you this, least of all me, but predict how this is going to, are we really fulfilling biblical prophecy? Are we manufacturing the application of trying to fulfill it? How does this translate to what we see unfolding in the Middle East right now, based on your historical comprehension of everything and who these people are and what their objectives really are? How does this end?
I think that these people have infinite amounts of hubris, and that is always their undoing. Because they start using their money for the wrong things, and eventually they get caught in their own petard, jabbed in their own petard. And so I think that in terms of any macro interpretation, I used to work in the Soviet Union and worked with dissidents and people that were suffering under the old Bolshevik communist revolution. They thought during their age that was the end times. And I don't blame them. I would too if I lived there.
Sure.
So I think that whether it is or isn't, nobody can know that. In fact, Jesus said, not even the angels know when that time is. Right. So we don't know that. Our job is to live each day and try to bring good in the world and love. And I think that when we do that, we release the spiritual world, the angels, the Archangel Michael, to do battle, and they won't do battle unless we are cooperating in that realm. So I think that is our. I think we don't know what's going to happen, and nor should we know. But what we do know is stuff we can control is what we should focus on. And I think that we don't want to get caught in the fear porn, and that's a part of this pretexting that they are experts at. They know how to get people caught up in the wrong things, right, that are unhelpful. So I think that let's just take it a day at a time and trust that God is going to have His will be done in all that we see. And any of these people that have evil intentions, let's hope karma comes to them.
Well, I'd like to see more karma delivered more expediently, because we still don't have any arrests coming out of this DOJ. I don't see at this point, we have all the evidence we need to prove how they're manipulating the elections, particularly with very dirty voter rolls. It's pretty evident. We've got 30 million illegals on, or voters that don't even exist or illegal or whatever, but there's 30 million bad votes coming off voter rolls across this country right now. And that has to be cleaned up. And I don't see an end in sight, despite how much noise is being made. The people have done their job. What we're not doing now is reconstituting the republic and governing ourselves accordingly. And we need to do it on that.
I know you're an expert in that area, and that's. I think that, from my view, we have a totally compromised and corrupt government,
totally,
and judiciary,
totally,
and banking system. So Absolutely. The question is, what do we, the people, do? And I think we probably are not doing exactly what we ought to be doing as a nation. But even saying that, if you go back and look at the revolution, they didn't have the consensus of the entire population. They had the consensus of enough to make that happen. So what's it going to take? I think it is banding together and calling people to a higher their higher self, and let's see what happens. We know what are good morals, and the thing we're not seeing are good morals being lived out by these people, nor do they seem to care that they aren't. And I think that they are compromised by this wealth that has been fed into our cultural system to the point where our systems are all corrupt.
Yeah.
And so what's going to come out of that? I don't know.
This is a list of the members of Congress who voted to not reveal the names of the slush fund. They don't want any of the slush fund information out there. It is, I think there was only 9 that said, yeah, go ahead and let it go. We don't care. But the rest of Congress voted against it. So when it comes to, these are terrible people. These are people who have sexually assaulted members of the public or maybe in Congress or whatever. And they have a slush fund to pay those people off so that it doesn't go to the media. And we pay for that. I mean, this is just lunacy.
Yeah,
and by the way, there's usury on that money because that Federal Reserve is printing it and loaning it to pay this stuff. And we're paying interest on money that we're paying bad money after bad money. It's just crazy.
Right.
It's just absolutely nuts what's happening. And you're right. It's incumbent upon us. General Flynn always says that local action has a national impact. And, my appeal is really to get back into your county governments like we did here in South Florida in Collier County. They declared themselves a Bill of Rights sanctuary county after they passed a resolution. They made it an ordinance and they stopped the masks. They stopped the jabs. All that stuff got stopped. Nobody had to do anything they didn't want to that was against their body autonomy. And it comes down to fundamental rights that God gives all of us. America was special in the fact that we codified it with the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the Declaration, and the Northwest Ordinance. We codified these things, and we invoked our Creator's name 4 times in all these documents. But no, we're not special as with respect to the rest of the world. God made all man equal, and all man to be free, man, women to be free. And yet we allow ourselves to be subjects to tyranny. And this is what we see happening. And tyranny now is in the form of a banker. It's in the form of your government that's controlled by these bankers. And we have to say no more. And frankly, the barter system is still alive and well, Michael. And I believe that when people really get down to it, if we become pressed and our backs against the wall and we have, terror events happening in this country and blood getting spilled, people will organize, and this will, the necessities and mother of all events, right?
I mean, it makes sense that the problem we have is that when I observed this in the courts, the more distant the court is from my local town, the less they're accountable to me or anybody else. And so federal things, I think most of the federal government could go away and we wouldn't even notice they're gone.
Correct. Agree.
Because they're grifters. That you go to work in the federal government to grift.
That's it. You're right.
I mean, I'm sorry. To me, it's that simple.
It is.
And, and then when you deal with, I'm always surprised when their response to something being wrong is to sue somebody. Well, what I've experienced is that the legal system itself is the grifter system that goes all the way back to Babylon. And their job back in Babylon was to make sure the bankers stayed wealthy. And so if you think of it that way, you think you go out and you know a local attorney and they seem all right and they don't seem to be that immoral. And when you think about that, you think, well, all attorneys are not bad. And I hear that and I want to believe that. But by the same token, if you go to that attorney and ask for a service and that attorney doesn't warn you about the grifting system, are they contributing to it?
Absolutely.
By their silence?
Absolutely.
I think they are.
Oh, without a question. Just watch any legal proceeding go on. It stretches out for years because somebody, throws up something and then they have a month to respond and it just goes back and forth and you're filing motions and it's a grift.
Right.
It's an absolute grift. And the common law was nothing like that.
Yeah, the more money you have, the longer you can stall it until the other side gets too tired.
Yeah. And semantics and the word salads and the definitions of words, how they've evolved and changed. I mean, if you want to know who we really are, you've got to get a periodic dictionary and read whatever it is you're reading at the period. If it's the 1700s, you got to get a dictionary that matches the time period. So you really can comprehend what they're saying.
Right.
Otherwise, a lot gets lost in translation, as they say. Wow. Michael McKibben, thank you so much for spending it's been an hour and 20. Thank you so much. As always, you're brilliant. I cannot say enough to the folks. I think really everybody should get a copy of this book here, Lillian. Where we are, Lillian Scott Troy. this is a fabulous read, and The Hidden Hand is also a fabulous read.
The Hidden Hand is going to be revised before it's out again, and it'll include the Schofield stuff.
Yeah, you touch on it, but you don't go deep into it. But
Right.
It's really, that is a psyop of unlike any other psyop, frankly.
Oh, it is. It's amazing how effective it was.
Extremely effective. And again, human beings by nature are compassionate. We don't want to see anybody suffer. Anytime there's a natural disaster, people run to help other people they've never met before and they'll never see again. It's truly how we are. We are compassionate human beings. But there is a small demonic sect of people, like you said. This is not this is demonic, really, that are there to prey on you.
The Bible says that our warfare.
Yeah,
our
exactly.
warfare.
So I think we've identified who some of these people are. They're the bankers, the lawyers, and frankly, they're in a lot of our governments. And these governments are tyrannical. And I would love to talk to some of the people in Israel, because I do believe that, yes, Iran is a state sponsor of terror. They have done terrible things. And we had a stupid president, Jimmy Carter, that allowed 444 days of Americans to be held hostage. It didn't have to be, but terrible people exist all over the world. It's all in how you manage it. And I think that, my concern is with this war, we don't have an exit strategy. And I'm not 100% certain what is going to change if China and Russia are backing Iran, which is one of their trading partners. And it goes back to the Silk Road, BRICS. So
it does.
It's very complicated. It's very complicated. So
yeah,
anyway.
So that's what I'm about, is to find a new light through this tunnel every day.
Yeah.
And kind of like the parable of the sowing of seed. You sow the truth, and you don't know how it's going to come up, because that's God's job.
Right.
And so as you're out there sharing what you do, you're planting seeds in other people's lives, and don't necessarily know how that seed grows, but the Bible promises it does grow. It
does. Let me ask you one last question. Is it possible that there's some discussions right now, since Putin has come out and said that he's really not interested in supplying gas? I think I even have that post up here. Is this it right here? Yeah, this is it. Let me just share this really quickly, because I think this is interesting. You should probably just take a look at it really quickly. Oops, I've got to get that off. And here we go. See if I can get the sound up on this.
These countries, and we're for our strategic partners, and we'll continue to maintain dialogue with these countries, and we'll do our best to, including with other countries of the international community, in the United Nations Security Council, and the United Nations General Assembly. We'll do everything to create an atmosphere that will make this operation impossible for our strategic partners, and we'll continue to maintain dialogue with these countries, and we'll do our best to, including with other countries of the international community, in the United Nations Security Council, and the United Nations General Assembly. We'll do everything to create an atmosphere
there you go.
That will make this operation.
Essentially, they're saying Russia and China are going to back. Russia is definitely going to back Iran, making it more difficult for the U.S. and Israel to attack. I mean, takeaway thoughts on that?
Well, it's on their southern border.
Yeah.
It would be like us watching something happen on the northern coast of South America. Would we just sit by and do nothing?
Yeah.
That's the problem with these psychopaths, is that they really don't have any empathy. So they don't care what happens to human beings. It's all about power and money to them.
Yeah.
And so obviously Russia's got to do something. I think I mentioned to you before, I may have met him once.
Putin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day. He was in charge of monitoring foreigners in Leningrad, and I went through the airport and ended up getting body searched because I was carrying out information about a Estonian professor that had gotten murdered by the prison guards in his prison where my friend was. And I had that information with me to take out to human rights groups.
Wow.
And they didn't find it. But I may have met him. I mean, I know he was running that operation. Whether he was there or not, I just don't remember.
FSB or whatever it was back then.
It was KGB.
KGB. Sorry. Yeah. Letters, acronyms.
Right.
Interesting. Well,
but anyway, I do think that he has potentially had a Christian conversion, but I don't know for sure.
Well, guess who's not in the Epstein files?
Who?
Putin. And, there was when he stopped allowing the Russian children to be adopted by the United States, was the Magnitsky Act. Was that what it was? He said, no more. We're not sending our kids over to the U.S. anymore. You guys are demons. You eat children. You sex traffic them. I mean, he had some speech where it was crazy. I was like, what? I can't believe he's saying all this, but he was saying it. And here it is. I mean, for those of us, we were called pizza gators for the things Putin was saying.
Really? Well, as with all those politicians, you'll know them by their fruit. And
right.
I don't listen to their words anymore.
Yeah, that's true. You'll know them by their fruit. Well, Michael, I've kept you very long. Thank you.
Great to talk to you.
Always great to have you on. I appreciate you folks. Definitely pick up a copy. Go on over to Aim for Truth. That is their website, one of their key websites.
Well, I would say for this, just go to Amazon.
Oh, right. Amazon.
But we did put up a site so it's easier to click. So if you just type LillianScottTroy.com, then it will take you to the Amazon site.
Oh, that's nice of you. I mean, anybody can type in
Lillian Scott Troy.
Yep, I've got it right now. Okay, I'm putting it up.
Yeah,
there it is, and you can click through. It's a great read. It's a great book, and Michael is well published. So if you go to Aim for Truth, AIM 4truth.org, that's a wonderful media site. Also, all of his articles that I've been referencing are all published there. This is Aim for Truth right here, American Intelligence Media. Great group of folks, diggers like you've never met before, and they have a beat and a pulse on everything going back to before Christ, which
True.
Is saying a lot.
Yes, well, we'll pick this up again. I'm hoping to be done with this update, and it'll be on Kindle first before it's in print.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it is wonderful to have you on, Michael. Thank you so much. My husband walked in the room, and we're live right now, so he's standing over here, but he loves your work. So just wanted to be aware. Yeah, he loves your work. Thank you so much.
Maybe I'll get down to see you there in Florida sometime.
I'd love it. David Morgan is in here too. It's a free documentary. He's talking. Oh, this is great. There's a little conversation going on here. David Morgan.
David's on this feed?
Yeah, David Morgan is in here. Hi, David. Good to see you.
Hey, David.
You know David Morgan, the Silver Guru?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Know him well.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a good friend. He's been a wonderful resource, folks. If you need silver, head on over to David Morgan,
David and I were years ago talking about Bitcoin, and he had his opinions and I had mine, and so we've talked over and over again. And then seeing these Epstein files where Epstein is documented taking over Bitcoin when it was in development in MIT Media Lab. That pretty much validates everything we were saying. Yeah.
Christy says hi to my husband, by the way. Hey, honey. My good friend, dear friend, Christy. She's been with me for years, going on 10 years now. She's been my admin in all kinds of social media. She's in the chat right now. Christy, we love you. She just recently lost her brother. Terrible. And so we're waiting for information on the service. She's with her mom and her family. So love to you, honey, on all this. Yeah. She's just an absolute dear. Anyhow, all right. I've kept you too long, but as always, Michael, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend, your precious time with me, because you are you're iconic in terms of research. I talk about you all the time. In fact, I was on the phone with Mickey Willis earlier, and with your permission, I'm going to share your phone number to Mickey Willis, the filmmaker. He wants to talk to you.
Okay. So, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing great work down there, sister. Keep it up.
Just like a little rowboat over here, just one oar at a time, Michael,
Those reports from the Darien Gap were priceless.
Yeah, they were good. That was a lot of fun. I need to get out in the field and do that again. I'm doing a lot of travel, but it's more personal. So I'm going to try and document a lot of stuff. We're trying to get to Africa in May. So I think that'll be really interesting. Right now, the airport we're flying through is in Qatar and Doha. So I think they just reopened it, but who knows if what's going on in the next couple of months, if that's even going to be feasible. So, right. And we're trying to get to Portugal for a friend's birthday later in the summer. Well, again, now the airfare tickets are just through the roof because of the war. So we don't know if that's going to happen.
It's a lot of people are making money from war, like they always do. So let's stop listening to everything they say and just start holding them to account.
Yeah, I mean, Polymarkets is a pretty good predictor these days. So maybe you should follow Polymarkets and just follow the markets. Capitalists, people tend to figure these things out and respond more efficiently than governments. That's a fact.
Right.
So anyhow, Michael, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
See you later.
Okay, bye-bye. Wow, folks, what a treat. Honestly, that is, to me, just fills my soul talking to this man. He's so brilliant. He's so well-researched. He's a real Christian. He's a firm believer. He's grounded in his faith. And he's just as nice as the day is long. I can't say enough about him. I absolutely adore him. I truly, really adore him and speaking with him. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming in today. We've had Ronald Lopez in here. Douglas, thank you for being back. He's one of our MMTL peers. Of course, Christy's in here. Squirrel Nuts. Love that name. Looks like you've got a Swiss flag there, Squirrel Nuts. Lady 360, thank you for being here. Kevin Stevens, thanks for putting the pedal to the metal and telling us to get down to the heart of the matter. We redirected. I hope you're happy with that. And David Morgan, always great to see you. It's just truly an honor. So I appreciate everybody that came in here. And Mr. Wonderful the cat. I'm a cat person and a dog person, so it's good to have a wonderful cat in here. And Donnie, Darko, thanks so much for stopping in. You guys are amazing. We have a lot is going to always unfold here. Our conversation, frankly, reminds us that history rarely moves in straight lines. Kind of wars happen. Empires will rise and fall. Political leaders come and go, not always because they were chosen. Perhaps they were just selected. But certain structures endure. Financial systems, trade routes, banking networks, the institutions that finance governments and shape these global markets, they always seem to endure. They might evolve and the people that are in them, but it's interesting how the people that have created these financial instruments, these financial institutions, these trade routes, they're the same people that are in government. And the current war that's unfolding right now between the U.S. and Israel and Iran, it's not a regional conflict. It's a struggle that touches energy markets, shipping lanes, global finance, geopolitical power. And when you understand that these systems, what they actually require, it requires you to ask these hard questions. Questions, who's financing these wars? Well, we talked about the origins of the finance on this with Michael. And I think he helped really get you to understand the DNA behind all of this. Who benefits from these conflicts? Well, I think we all know bankers fund both sides of the war. So they, with usury and the interests, they get to benefit. Questions about who controls financial architecture behind our global economy is critical to understanding how the global economy is going to expand, contract, how we're going to engage fairly and peacefully in trade and just travel. And then, of course, whether every claim about the hidden hand proves accurate or not. Well, I think you can say that one truth actually remains. If you want to understand the world, follow the money. And Michael McKibben has done a great job of following the money. It all happened when he had his social media architecture, his technology stolen, and it led him down this rabbit hole. So I'm really grateful for Michael stopping by and sharing this with me today. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Ann Vandersteel. I hope to see you guys again. I'll be off tomorrow, heading up to a meeting for the weekend. And I'll be back next week. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks always for being here.
Food security or food sovereignty. Every time we buy food, we choose. Glyphosate exposure is exploding, and people are asking, why is food so expensive? This is why we do what we do. Organic fields, thriving orchards, the purest ingredients straight from the earth. From our farms to your family, we do the testing so you don't have to. You save time, you save money, and our regenerative farms continue to grow. It's time to remove what does not belong. Rebuild with cleaner inputs. Support the farmers with the future in mind. This isn't a trend, it's a shift. We still have a voice. we still have a choice to vote with our dollars for a healthier America today. Tap the link.
Are you ready to take your health back? At vandersteelhealth.com, I trust Purium's powerful superfoods to fuel my body with clean, plant-based nutrition. And in a world filled with toxins, Biomedic is designed to help support your body's natural detox process, even from glyphosate exposure. Real nutrition, targeted support, no junk. Go to vandersteelhealth.com and take control of your health today.